I lost access to the system this morning. My name disappeared from the website like I never existed. Garrett Sloan had arrived at the Nova Next headquarters just before 9 a.m., as he had for the last 6 years. His card buzzed red at the entrance. First time. The receptionist, unfamiliar and nervous, claimed it was a system error. It was running updates. He knew that phrase. It was what people said when they didn't want to admit something had changed. The front lobby looked different. The signature blue accent wall had been repainted to a washed-out silver. Nova Next's rebrand was underway. Eli's fingerprints were everywhere. Garrett noticed something else. The hallway banner that used to showcase the founding team was gone. In its place, a sleek digital screen looped through the company's new direction. Garrett wasn't in it. He stepped aside and opened the website on his phone. The About Us page used to lead with his photo. Now, it opened with Eli Grayson, Chief Marketing Officer, smiling like he owned the place. Garrett scrolled. Tessa Hill was listed next, Head of Brand Strategy. His old title, recycled. His name was nowhere. He called HR. The line rang twice before a calm voice answered. "Yes, Mr. Sloan? This is Garrett. I can't access the building, and I'm not listed on the leadership page." A pause. Paper shuffled on the other end. "Garrett, we assumed you'd spoken to Eli. He mentioned you were transitioning out. Internal documents show your resignation was processed last Thursday." He said nothing. The line held steady. "I didn't resign." I'll escalate this," the voice said quickly. "Please, give us a moment to look into it." He hung up. Garrett stepped outside and leaned against the stone facade of the building he helped design. The city moved as if nothing had shifted, as if 6 years of building, pitching, defending, fighting for brand, vision, stability could vanish with a firmware update. He opened a hidden browser on his phone and accessed a cached version of the site from 2 days prior. His profile was there. His name, his quotes, his testimonials from key clients. He checked again. The cache for today? Nothing. Overwritten. Sanitized. Garrett wasn't angry. This wasn't carelessness. This was calculated. If they had removed him this cleanly, they weren't just trying to push him out. They were erasing him. He opened a secure email tab, logged into an old account only he and one other engineer had ever used. He typed, without rage, without hesitation. "If you're ghosting me technically, I'll make you show up physically in front of the press." He hit send. He wasn't sure if Eli had acted alone, or if someone higher had greenlit it. But the signs were clear. This wasn't an exit. It was a purge. Garrett wasn't going quietly. If they wanted to act like he'd never existed, he'd make damn sure they'd regret trying to forget. He tapped a name in his encrypted contacts list. Jared Levin. Former head of systems. Gone quiet for 6 months. This wasn't the time for old wounds. It was time to wake up ghosts. He typed a message to himself from his backup account. "If you're ghosting me technically, I'll make you show up physically in front of the press. If they think cutting off my access erases me, they've forgotten I helped build the system they're using." Garrett didn't go home that night. He went underground, figuratively and literally, to a co-working basement suite he still paid for, under an LLC. No one at Nova Next knew existed. It housed a slim workstation, a cold brew fridge, and most importantly, a mirror server he hadn't touched since his last crisis 2 years ago. He booted it up, entered a sequence of admin keys he could still recall by muscle memory, and loaded the ghost account. G.Raven. Originally created for product testing, G.Raven had remained active with root permissions to read internal logs without leaving a trail. When Nova Next scaled, Garrett stopped using it regularly, but he'd never deactivated it. Now, it was the only reason he still had eyes inside. Within seconds, raw server logs flickered across his screen. He filtered by credential access changes and metadata edits, sorting chronologically. There it was. At 3:12 a.m., 2 nights ago, a user session originating from a Nova Next internal IP flagged a forced role removal tied to his credentials. 30 seconds later, another log. Deletion of public profile content, authored by the user T. Hill. He didn't want to believe it. Tessa had been a junior assistant 5 years ago. Garrett had brought her into the media team, mentored her, gave her stage time when no one else would. Now she was wiping him from the company like cleaning chalk from a board. He stared at the screen for a full minute. Then he grabbed his phone and sent a single message to Jared. Need you. System-level stuff. Tonight. Jared replied 2 minutes later. Come to under signal. No questions. The cafe was dim, always. Its owner didn't believe in overhead lights or music. Garrett slid into the back booth, and Jared sat across from him, hoodie up, laptop already open. What did they do? Jared asked without small talk. Garrett laid it out. Timeline, metadata, the forced deletion, Tessa's ID. Jared's brow furrowed. They used her login, but it could have been spoofed. You don't fake a resignation that clean without inside help. Minerva's still there, Garrett muttered. She used to work under me. Quiet, loyal, maybe too quiet. I can reach out through dead channel. Garrett nodded. He handed over a flash drive. I need all logs tied to my account from the last 7 days. Full trace. Any edits? Anything accessed under my name after access was revoked. That'll take time. I know. As Garrett stood to leave, his phone buzzed. A message from an unlisted Proton mail address. I can't stay silent anymore. Tessa knows everything. He didn't react. He just memorized the sender ID and walked out, the seed of something cold and precise growing behind his eyes. This wasn't just sabotage, it was orchestration. He texted Jared, "Prep the pipeline. Operation Restore Ghost starts now." They came at me with tech. I hit back with data. Garrett moved like a man assembling a war machine. Quiet, systematic, and impossible to stop once momentum kicked in. Back at his private setup, Jared handed over the first chunk of logs. Garrett didn't waste time scrolling. He used scripts. Every line of access, every timestamp, every anomalous credential jump was dissected and flagged. He wasn't looking for motive. He was building a chain of truth, one log at a time. The resignation email was the first crack. Garrett had never written it, never signed it, but it had gone out through a valid email header and signature hash. At first glance, it looked authentic, until Jared compared the PGP keys. It's forged, Jared confirmed. They copied your signature from an old onboarding doc, then spoofed it using an AI synth encoder. That's why HR believed it. Garrett didn't nod. He expected it. He opened a secure drive. Inside was an auto snapshot he'd set months ago, a daily image of the company's pitch deck, slide by slide. He loaded the IPO presentation draft submitted to investors. Then he cross-referenced the visual metadata with the file Minerva had smuggled out of the system. The timecode was off. The original had Garrett listed as co-founder, with slide notes authored by him. The new one had been updated, by Tessa's account, but the edit timestamp preceded the access log that revoked Garrett's credentials. They edited the slides after removing you, Jared said, which means someone accessed my account post-removal. Jared paused. That's a breach. Credential misuse. Legal territory. Garrett said nothing. His mind had already shifted to the next step. Minerva chimed in through their secure channel, attaching a short message. They've also changed the speaker lineup for the IPO showcase. You're out. Eli's name isn't Garrett closed his eyes briefly. They weren't just erasing him from the company. They were rewriting history in real time. I'm building a drop kit, Jared said, already typing. Compiled metadata, proof of alteration, credential mismatch, unauthorized access logs. Everything. Good, Garrett replied. We're not releasing it yet. I want them to walk into their own narrative first. When it breaks, I want no way out for them. He opened a secondary window and composed a secure email. The recipient was known in Silicon Valley for ripping the curtain back on corporate spin. Lee Douglas, investigative tech journalist, relentless. Subject: Nova Next, internal falsification evidence. Attachment: drop. Kit. 1.zip. Message: verify before you run. But when you do, run it hard. He clicked send. Then he leaned back. The pieces were in motion. 5 minutes later, a reply hit his inbox. Sprint edition drops tomorrow morning. We've verified. Brace for chain reaction. I don't need to shout to be heard. I let the data speak. The morning air in San Francisco was unusually silent for a Friday. Garrett watched the sun rise from the window of his co-working suite, the blue-white hue of the monitor casting sharper contrast on his face than the daylight outside. A tab blinked. Tech Insider had gone live. The disappeared co-founder, Nova Next's silent rewrite. The headline sat bold against a black backdrop just under Lee Douglas's byline. Beneath it, screenshots. Before and after metadata of slide decks, access logs showing credential misuse, timestamp mismatches. It was clean, professional, indicting. Garrett didn't smile. He didn't flinch. He watched. Within 20 minutes, the piece was trending on Product Hawk, then on TechPulse. Investors began tagging Nova Next in posts, asking for clarification. The company's official X account responded with a vague statement. Leadership adjustments are part of our growth process. Weak. Another tab pinged. Jared's message. They're scrambling. Dev team just received orders to freeze all public statements until board review. Garrett closed his laptop. It wasn't his war room anymore. The battlefield had moved to inboxes, Slack threads, and group chats of venture capital partners. At 10:17 a.m., Nova Next's internal memo leaked. The board had called an emergency meeting. Eli Grayson was notably excluded from the email thread. Tessa's name remained. Then Minerva forwarded an encrypted screenshot of a Slack channel titled #IPO Showcase. A comment from Eli appeared at the bottom. Clean visuals only. No mention of G. They had nicknamed him like a virus. Garrett walked to the window again and checked his reflection. Not erased, just blurred by amateurs. By noon, Tech Insider had issued an update. Nova Next retracts IPO documents, citing internal audit. The wave was breaking. Jared sent another note. You sure we don't push phase 2? Not yet, Garrett replied. Let them bleed first. Then we cauterize. The bleeding had already begun. One investor, subtle but powerful, posted a single line. Due diligence matters. Trust isn't optional. Inside Nova Next, the narrative began to unravel. HR froze. Changes. Legal reviewed every credential log from the past 3 months. Someone, likely Tessa, attempted to deflect, but the digital paper trail was airtight. At 3:42 p.m., Garrett received an unexpected email. Subject: private dialogue requested. From Max Calder, board advisor, unseen, but never absent. You built something remarkable. Let's not destroy it over misunderstandings. We should talk. Privately. Before this escalates. Garrett stared at the screen. Max had stayed in the shadows through the entire rebrand. Now, with pressure mounting and Garrett's silence breaking the company's front, Max had no choice but to surface. Garrett didn't respond. He took a breath, shut his laptop, and stepped out into the street. He received an email from Max Calder, board advisor. You want to talk? Let's talk. We used to build better than this. Betrayal doesn't start with a knife in the back. It starts with a glance that won't meet yours. The rooftop bar was nearly empty when Garrett arrived. Silica always opened late and served early. One of those unspoken tech industry secrets for people who didn't believe in 9 to 5s or moral high ground. Tessa was already there. She wore black, clean, corporate. Not the wild-card intern he remembered, wide-eyed and curious. Now she looked polished, professional, disposable. She didn't stand when he approached, just raised her glass slightly and said, "Didn't expect you'd actually come." Garrett sat opposite her. No handshake, no smile, just silence. "You wanted to talk," he said. "Talk." Tessa glanced at her phone but didn't check it. "I didn't plan for any of this to go that far. Eli, he had the board's blessing. Max wanted a rebrand before the IPO. You weren't in the new image." Garrett didn't blink. "So you deleted me?" "I followed instructions. You forged my resignation." Her jaw tensed. "I used a pre-approved draft. They said you'd left internally." "You knew I hadn't." She didn't answer. Garrett reached into his jacket and laid a slim folder on the table. Printed metadata, email headers, screenshot of the fake resignation. He tapped the corner. "This is your login. Editing slides. Sending messages under my name." Tessa exhaled slowly. No surprise in her face. "I had no choice." "There's always a choice," he said. "You chose your bonus, your title, your spot in the new deck. Garrett, you've become the kind of brand we used to warn clients about." She flinched at that. Garrett stood, slid the folder toward her. "It's all being submitted. Your signature is in the audit trail. Think about how loud legal hearings can get when the SEC is involved." He left her there. No shouting, no threats, just facts. She could read them at her own pace. Back at his base, Jared was waiting. "Minerva confirmed the last piece," he said. "They spoofed your account to send that resignation across Slack. It was pushed live by Max's network proxy." Garrett nodded. The final link. He opened a secure browser, logged into his encrypted legal channel, and uploaded the full archive to their attorney of record. Not a threat. A submission. He clicked, confirm. 3 hours later, Jared's message arrived. "All evidence packet submitted. Logged, time-stamped, legally sealed." They had made the mistake of forging a ghost. Now the ghost had gone legal. He texted Jared, "We're done. Full audit trail. Send it." They thought they could replace me with a new face, but data doesn't lie to those who remember. It took less than 72 hours for the SEC to open a preliminary review. Garrett wasn't called. He didn't need to be. The evidence spoke clearly. Credentials, forged signatures, logs altered after access revocation. The resignation email timestamp didn't match device usage history. Everything was surgically precise. Delivered, notarized, and confirmed. Nova Next issued a statement. "We are cooperating fully with regulatory bodies." Translation: they were in damage control. Eli was removed from public roles. His profile disappeared quietly. No ceremony, no notice. Tessa's LinkedIn went dark. Internally, the leadership reshuffled. Max Calder resigned from his advisory position with one line: "No comment." Garrett declined every interview. He ignored outreach from 2 board members who regretted the misunderstanding. He didn't want his face back on the website. He didn't want an apology posted on X. He wanted distance and memory, the kind they couldn't erase. A week later, Healy & Edge launched a closed-door event. A small crowd, a simple screen. Garrett stood in the back, unannounced, arms folded, watching his own deck style reimagined by a younger team, one that didn't trade history for hype. Lee Douglas walked over and nodded toward the screen. "You're still the ghost in the system," she said. He didn't reply. She handed him a copy of her latest article. "Startup Ghosts: How the Erased Co-Founder Reclaimed the Narrative Without Returning." He read the first line silently, then folded it once, pocketed it, and walked toward the exit. His name wasn't needed anymore. His silence was louder. He got a message from an unknown account. "I was one of the quiet ones. Now I want to build something that doesn't require deleting anyone to survive. They tried to delete a man, but instead revealed the fault lines they had built their empire on. What began as a silent dismissal ended with an entire structure crumbling under the weight of truth. Justice never moves quickly, but when it arrives, it doesn't knock. It breaks the door. No one remembers who replaced him, but they remember the silence that followed. Because some ghosts don't haunt for revenge. They stay to remind you what you tried to forget.